Chat GDP, what we haven't talked in our previous conversation.
In our previous conversation, we covered various ideas about the relationship between the spiritual and physical worlds, using analogies like a human player and NPCs in a computer game to explore concepts of free will, soul influence, and the nature of existence. We also touched on how individuals might resist or embrace spiritual guidance based on their perceptions and experiences. However, we didn't fully dive into the idea of how humans can recognize or experience the spiritual realm while still being grounded in the physical world, or how different individuals may react to or process these realizations in their lives. Would you like to explore this further?
Yeah, now the problem is also is the confusion or the obstacle or the problem to all the human being. Actually, such a problem already go through the human civilization. That is how to make a direct connection to the spiritual being.
Yes, that's a profound question. Throughout human history, many have sought to directly connect with what you're referring to as the special beings or spiritual entities. This pursuit often leads to confusion or difficulty because it involves transcending the physical world, which many people are so focused on, and moving toward an understanding or experience that might seem intangible or even unknowable. People have attempted this connection through religion, meditation, rituals, or even by seeking enlightenment. Yet, the challenge remains that the mind and body are often deeply anchored in the material world, making it hard for individuals to open themselves up to this more transcendent experience. Additionally, as you mentioned before, some people might not feel guided by their souls or spiritual beings, which adds to the complexity of the issue. The question is, how can we make that direct connection clearer? And how can we guide people who are struggling with this barrier between the physical and spiritual realms?
And I have to point out that is actually even some thousand years we have so much misunderstanding to that how to make a direct connection to the spiritual being.
Yes, that's
People,
true. Over thousands of years, misunderstandings have accumulated, often because different cultures, religions, and societies interpret the nature of reality and the spiritual world in various ways. Some people view spiritual experiences or beliefs through a very literal lens, while others might embrace metaphorical or symbolic interpretations. These differing views can create confusion and prevent a unified understanding of the true connection to spiritual beings. Moreover, the difficulty lies in the fact that, for many, the spiritual world is hard to conceptualize or perceive without direct experience. As a result, people rely on their limited human understanding, which can often lead to misconceptions or misinterpretations. This is further complicated by the influence of personal biases, societal conditioning, and even fear of the unknown. The challenge is not just in making the connection, but also in overcoming the layers of misunderstanding that have been built up over centuries.
well, I want to point out that is actually if we ask for the connection or dialogue to the spiritual being, we just ask ourselves because the body, the human life actually is combined by body, mind, and soul. So if just ask ourselves, if our soul would like to answer our question, so instantly he would give us the answer. But if we ask the answer through some religion or religious organization, I think that is only come from the dedicated desire of our mind.
Yes, you make a good point. If we look inward, connecting directly with our soul, we might be able to receive answers more clearly and instantly, as it's a direct dialogue between the soul and the self. Our soul inherently knows the truth and has the wisdom that transcends our limited understanding. This direct connection might be the most genuine and immediate way to seek answers to our questions. However, when we try to reach out for answers through religious institutions or organized systems, the interpretation of spiritual knowledge may become filtered or altered by human beliefs, practices, and societal norms. While these systems may offer valuable insights or support, They are often shaped by external influences and can become barriers to a direct, unfiltered connection with the soul or the special being. So, in essence, by turning inward, we can potentially bypass these external layers and seek the truth directly from our own spiritual essence. The challenge lies in recognizing this inner connection and trusting in the answers that come from within.
So the problem is why a human being always want to seek help from outside, or maybe they don't trust their inner soul, but they just want to find help from the outside, the soul. So why such thing would happen?
The tendency to seek help from the outside rather than trusting our inner soul is deeply rooted in human nature and society. Many people are conditioned from a young age to look for answers outside themselves, whether it's from authority figures, religious institutions, or societal expectations. This external search can stem from a few key factors. First, there's often a sense of insecurity or fear of not understanding or trusting one's own inner wisdom. Our minds and bodies are heavily influenced by external factors, such as upbringing, culture, and societal norms, which can overshadow our deeper spiritual connection. Because of this, it may feel safer to rely on external sources of guidance rather than the unknown of inner wisdom. Second, the mind often craves tangible, concrete answers. It's easier to look outside for something we can see, touch, or understand through rational thought. Inner wisdom and the soul's guidance are often subtle, intuitive, and not always easily grasped by the mind. It takes patience and a willingness to trust in something less tangible. Lastly, there may be a deep seated belief that the external world holds more authority or knowledge. Religions, philosophies, or spiritual practices developed by societies are seen as having more wisdom or experience than an individual could possibly have on their own. This belief makes it easier to defer responsibility for spiritual understanding to these outside systems. Ultimately, the journey toward trusting our inner soul is about overcoming fear, letting go of external validation, and learning to tune into the quiet wisdom within. It's a challenge, but it's also a deeply empowering process.
But the problem is, do you think why people have such a fear from to our inner feeling, or why the fear with creation?
The fear of trusting our inner feelings or the fear of creation often stems from a few deep rooted factors. One of the main reasons is the fear of the unknown. Our inner feelings or the creative process can be unpredictable, and that unpredictability can be unsettling. The mind, which seeks certainty and control, may find this unpredictability threatening. It can be much easier to stick with familiar external sources of guidance rather than face the potential chaos or confusion that comes with relying on our own inner wisdom. Another reason is the fear of vulnerability. Trusting our inner feelings and creations requires us to expose our true selves, and that can be a daunting prospect. It might bring up feelings of inadequacy, self doubt, or fear of judgment from others. The fear of failure or making mistakes can also hold people back from embracing their inner creative potential. Society and upbringing also play a significant role. From an early age, many people are taught to rely on external structures, such as rules, traditions, and authority figures, for validation and direction. This can create a belief that our own intuition or creativity isn't enough or that it's not trustworthy. In this context, trusting the inner self may feel rebellious or even dangerous because it challenges established norms. Lastly, the fear of creation is often tied to the fear of responsibility. Creating something new, whether it's an idea, a piece of art, or a life path, means taking responsibility for the outcome. That responsibility can feel overwhelming, especially when the creation challenges existing systems or brings attention to our vulnerability. In essence, this fear is a mix of uncertainty, vulnerability, societal conditioning, and the responsibility that comes with creating something new. Overcoming this fear involves learning to embrace the unknown, trust in the process of creation, and believe in our own inherent worth and wisdom.
But the fear, isn't what you said about the fear is so complicated. So how can we di- uh, di- differentiate the fear that helping our survival, but another fear that is the untrusted to our inner voice?
You're right to point out that the fear tied to survival is different from the fear that prevents us from trusting our inner voice. The key difference lies in the source and the purpose of the fear. Survival related fear is typically a primal response to danger or threat. It's a protective mechanism that helps us respond quickly to immediate risks, such as avoiding physical harm or securing resources. This kind of fear is generally instinctive, rational, and focused on protecting us in the physical world. For example, if you're walking near a cliff, the fear of falling is a helpful survival response. It alerts you to step back. On the other hand, the fear that prevents us from trusting our inner voice is more often rooted in emotional or psychological factors. It may come from past experiences, societal influences, or self doubt. This fear doesn't serve an immediate survival need, but rather stems from uncertainty, judgment, or a fear of failure. For example, you might hesitate to pursue a creative project or speak your truth because you're afraid of how others will perceive you or because you're uncertain about your own abilities. To differentiate the two types of fear, you can ask yourself, does this fear stem from an immediate physical threat? If so, it's likely a survival fear. Is this fear keeping me from expressing my true self, trying something new, or taking a risk based on what feels right to me? If so, it may be the fear that stems from not trusting your inner voice. Another helpful approach is to tune into your body. Survival fear often creates a strong, immediate physical response, such as a racing heart, shallow breathing, or a burst of adrenaline, because it's connected to an instinctual need to act quickly. In contrast, fear related to trusting your inner voice might feel more like tension, hesitation, or a sense of discomfort that doesn't necessarily trigger the same fight or flight response. Understanding these differences can help you discern which fears are protective and which ones are holding you back from your personal growth and expression.
But the problem is, even the human is not in a dangerous situation. We still have so much fear in our life. We fear to lose our job. We fear to be isolated from the society. We fear to lose money, something like that. So such a fear is in everywhere.
You're absolutely right. Fear isn't limited to immediate physical danger. Much of the fear humans experience in everyday life revolves around abstract concerns like social acceptance, financial security, or personal identity. These fears are tied to deeper psychological needs, such as the desire for stability, connection, and validation. For example, the fear of losing a job can stem from the insecurity of not being able to provide for oneself or one's family, or from a loss of self worth that might come with not fulfilling a societal role. Similarly, the fear of isolation or being rejected can be tied to our need for belonging and connection with others. These fears are often not life threatening, but they are tied to the fabric of how we see ourselves in the world and how we perceive our place in it. Many of these fears are products of how society structures itself. There's often an expectation of success, wealth, and status, and those who don't meet these standards might feel like they are somehow failing or missing out on life's guarantees. Even without immediate danger, the mind is constantly evaluating potential risks to these perceived needs, which can create ongoing anxiety. A key difference between survival fear and these fears is that survival fears have a clear, present trigger, like a dangerous situation, whereas fears related to job loss, financial issues, or isolation are more abstract. They're often based on past experiences, societal pressures, or imagined future scenarios. Overcoming these fears usually requires some deep self reflection. Understanding that many of these fears are based on perceptions or projections rather than actual immediate threats can help loosen their hold. It's about recognizing that while these fears may feel very real, they aren't necessarily grounded in the same way as the instinctive survival fears we experience in dangerous situations. Reconnecting with one's inner voice, focusing on what truly matters, and building resilience in the face of uncertainty can help reduce the power these fears have over our lives.
The problem is, do you think such a fear come from our soul or it's just come from our mind?
The fear you're describing likely originates more from the mind than the soul. The mind is the part of us that processes information, makes judgments, and reacts to stimuli based on past experiences, societal conditioning, and survival instincts. It's where we hold beliefs, form perceptions, and interpret situations. Many of the fears we face, such as fear of failure, rejection, or uncertainty, come from how our mind interprets these external factors or imagined future outcomes. The mind often creates scenarios and projections that aren't necessarily grounded in the present reality, but are shaped by past experiences or worries. On the other hand, the soul is often seen as a more constant, deeper part of us, untouched by the fluctuating fears or anxieties of the mind. Some believe the soul is connected to a sense of inner peace, purpose, and truth, unaffected by external pressures. While the soul might experience a type of fear in situations where it feels disconnected from its higher purpose or truth, it's not generally the source of the day to day fears associated with physical survival or societal expectations. In essence, fear that comes from the mind is often rooted in survival instincts, ego, and societal conditioning, while the soul is thought to be more aligned with a deeper understanding of existence, free from the anxiety driven fears of the mind.
So the problem is in the mind control everything or dominate the human life mainly, especially to those behavior or action in at least on the surface, the mind take over all the thing.
Yes, exactly. The mind has a powerful role in shaping how we experience and react to the world. It processes information from our senses, forms beliefs based on experiences, and creates narratives about who we are and what our purpose is. The mind also plays a key part in interpreting external events and determining our responses, often driven by emotions, fears, and desires. In many cases, the mind's control can overshadow deeper aspects of our being, like the soul. The mind might create illusions, or distortions, often influenced by societal expectations, survival instincts, or past conditioning. This is why many people can be caught in cycles of fear, anxiety, and external validation, as the mind convinces them that these things are crucial for survival or success. The soul, on the other hand, is often seen as more connected to the deeper truth of existence, untainted by the ego driven desires or fears of the mind. But the challenge for many people is to recognize and align with the soul's guidance, which is often overshadowed by the noise and influence of the mind. In this way, the mind's role is like a filter, determining how we perceive and interact with the world, often based on logic, emotion, and past experiences, while the soul's role is to provide a deeper, more constant sense of truth and purpose. The struggle comes when the mind takes over, creating a distorted view of reality and clouding our connection with the deeper aspects of our being.
In our previous conversation, we have been talk make a sample that is actually everyone they know that is the serious consequence of gambling and smoking. Even they don't have any thinking, they already know the answer. I think that maybe such an answer come from our soul, but people still have so much gambling behavior or smoking every day. So it's such a nice suicide behavior. Do you think it comes from the mind control?
Yes, I believe the mind plays a significant role in why people continue behaviors like gambling or smoking, even when they know the risks. While the soul might provide a deeper, intuitive understanding that these actions are harmful, the mind often overpowers that wisdom. The mind can create justifications or temporary pleasures that obscure the long term consequences. For example, the mind can focus on the immediate rewards of gambling or smoking, the excitement, the distraction, or the temporary relief from stress, rather than the eventual negative outcomes. This is why people often engage in behaviors they know are harmful. The mind is prioritizing short term gratification over long term well being. The mind might also be influenced by emotional factors like addiction, peer pressure, or even a desire for control in a world that can feel overwhelming. In these cases, the mind's power to rationalize or block out the soul's awareness of consequences becomes a driving force behind these behaviors, despite the person knowing they are ultimately self destructive. In this way, the mind can become a barrier to the deeper wisdom of the soul, leading people to act against their own best interests. The key challenge is breaking the cycle of mind driven behaviors and reconnecting with the deeper wisdom that the soul offers.
The problem is why does the mind would do those risky behavior even actually the mind understand what is the serious consequence is waiting for him.
The mind's tendency to engage in risky behavior, even when it understands the potential consequences, often comes down to a few psychological factors. One, immediate gratification. The mind is wired to prioritize short term pleasure or relief over long term consequences. The thrill of gambling or the temporary pleasure of smoking can be so enticing that they overshadow the knowledge of future harm. Two, cognitive dissonance. This is a psychological phenomenon where a person experiences discomfort when their actions contradict their beliefs. To reduce this discomfort, the mind might rationalize or minimize the risks, convincing itself that this time will be different or it's not that bad. Three, addiction. In behaviors like smoking or gambling, the mind can become addicted to the chemicals or the psychological reward associated with the behavior. This addiction can override rational thinking, as the body and mind crave that familiar pleasure or escape, even if the person knows it's harmful. Four, escapism. Life can be stressful, and the mind often seeks ways to escape. Engaging in risky behaviors can offer a temporary escape from emotional pain, anxiety, or other issues. The mind may rationalize the behavior as a way to cope, despite knowing the long term risks. Five, fear of change. Even when the mind understands the negative consequences of certain behaviors, it can fear the unknown. Changing habits, especially ones tied to immediate rewards, can be daunting. The mind might cling to familiar behaviors, even if they are self destructive, because the discomfort of change feels scarier than the potential future consequences. In essence, the mind often makes decisions based on emotional impulses, immediate rewards, or avoidance of discomfort, even when logical reasoning or awareness of consequences should guide different choices. The challenge lies in shifting the mind's focus from short term gratification to long term well being.
So actually, when a person do the risky behavior, the soul would keep the warning that person that is dangerous waiting for him, but the mind just reject those advance from the soul.
Yes, exactly. The soul, with its deeper wisdom and understanding, often sends subtle warnings or guidance, knowing the potential consequences of risky behaviors. However, the mind can overpower those warnings. The mind, influenced by emotions, desires, or immediate gratification, may dismiss or ignore the soul's advice, leading the person to engage in risky behavior despite knowing it's harmful. This disconnect happens because the mind is more focused on the present moment and its immediate needs or wants, while the soul is more attuned to the long term well being and greater truth. The mind, with its powerful influence on behavior, can sometimes choose to prioritize short term rewards over the wisdom of the soul, resulting in actions that might not align with the person's highest good.
And in our previous conversation, we have been make an analogy that the soul actually is the emperor, and then the mind is the prime minister. From some people, their behavior actually they would like to take some risky behavior in their life. As in the prime minister, they want to overthrow the authority of the emperor. Why such thing would happen?
Yes, that's an insightful analogy. The soul, as the emperor, holds the wisdom and long term vision for the well being of the individual, while the mind, as the prime minister, is more concerned with immediate practicalities, desires, and emotional responses. The mind's desire to overthrow the soul's authority can stem from several factors. One reason is that the mind is more connected to the physical world, where instant gratification and external rewards can be more enticing. The mind often seeks comfort, pleasure, or excitement in the present moment, while the soul, with its deeper perspective, understands the long term consequences of those choices. In a sense, the prime minister, the mind, might challenge the emperor, the soul, because it operates based on the tangible and immediate, rather than the broader, more abstract knowledge of the soul. When the mind is not aligned with the soul, it may make decisions that disregard the deeper wisdom, choosing instead to prioritize temporary satisfaction or relief, even if it ultimately undermines the individual's true well being. This struggle can happen because of fear, insecurity, or lack of trust in the soul's guidance, or simply because the mind is more accustomed to controlling the actions based on survival instincts and sensory input.
And we have that there is one fact that is the soul can live permanently, but the mind would be disappear after the body died. So maybe the mind do the thing so heavy and do the thing not without consideration the consequence. That is because he want to get the uh, greatest benefit in the short period.
Yes, that's a key insight. The mind, being more connected to the body and the physical world, is often driven by the need for immediate gratification, and its awareness of the body's limited time on earth might push it to make decisions that prioritize short term benefits. Since the mind knows its existence is tied to the body and will cease to be once the body dies, it can become more focused on maximizing pleasure, achievement, or enjoyment during its brief time in the physical world. In contrast, the soul, which is eternal, understands the long term consequences of action. The soul's perspective is timeless, so it's not as concerned with immediate rewards, but with the overall harmony and well being of the person over the course of their existence, which extends beyond just one lifetime. The tension arises because the mind's sense of urgency, influenced by its temporary nature, may not fully consider the long term implications, whereas the soul sees beyond those fleeting moments and tries to guide the person toward more lasting fulfillment. This is why there can be such a struggle between the immediate desires of the mind and the deeper wisdom of the soul.
So, from all those human behavior by observation, I think that to some people, if his mind would like to cooperate with the soul, maybe the mind finally will get what he wants. But if someone, his mind uh, would not cooperate with the soul, maybe his life will face the serious consequence, even the completely failure.
Yes, exactly. When the mind cooperates with the soul, there tends to be alignment between short term desires and long term well being. The person might experience inner peace, fulfillment, and a sense of purpose because the decisions made by the mind are in harmony with the deeper, wiser guidance of the soul. In these cases, the mind might still seek pleasure or success, but it does so in a way that contributes to the overall balance and growth of the individual. On the other hand, when the mind refuses to cooperate with the soul and follows only its own immediate desires, it may lead to destructive outcomes. The mind's drive for short term gratification, like in risky behaviors or impulsive decisions, might result in negative consequences, such as harm to the body, mind, or relationships. Over time, this could lead to a deeper sense of emptiness, failure, or regret because the mind's actions are not in alignment with the soul's broader, more enduring goals. In this way, the mind that resists cooperation with the soul might face serious consequences, not necessarily because the soul is punitive, but because the soul's wisdom is designed to guide the mind toward choices that are ultimately more fulfilling and aligned with a deeper, more lasting purpose.
So it reminds me when people compare their something unfair or some unlucky happen in their life, they complain that their fate or their destination is so bad. Maybe that is the complaint come from the mind, and but as we know, the soul always have his sponsor for, or it is so pain for the human life.
Yes, exactly. When people experience hardship or what they perceive as unfair situations, it's often the mind that reacts with frustration, anger, or resentment. The mind is focused on what it desires in the present moment and may struggle to understand why things aren't going according to its expectations. This sense of unfairness can arise when the mind faces challenges that conflict with its desires or when things don't seem to go as planned. However, from a broader perspective, the soul is believed to have a deeper, long term plan for each individual. The soul may have orchestrated certain experiences, not to punish the mind, but to help it grow, learn, or realign with deeper truths. These challenges or perceived misfortunes might be seen as part of a larger journey that, while difficult in the moment, ultimately serves to evolve the person in a way that the mind might not immediately understand. The soul's perspective is often more expansive, seeing the bigger picture, whereas the mind, caught up in its immediate desires, may only focus on the discomfort or the unfairness of the situation. Over time, many people may come to realize that some of their greatest growth or understanding emerged from the very difficulties they once complained about.
The problem is even the soul want the mind going up, but if the mind finally would disappear after the body dies, so such a going is seen as meaningless to the mind.
That's a valid point. From the mind's perspective, growth and learning may seem insignificant if it knows that it will eventually disappear after the body dies. The mind, in that sense, is focused on the finite, the tangible, and the immediate, and it might not fully grasp the soul's long term perspective or its eternal nature. The soul, however, operates on a different level. It sees the bigger picture and understands that the purpose of life isn't necessarily for the mind's immediate satisfaction, but for a deeper spiritual growth. Even though the mind may disappear after death, the soul continues to evolve and accumulate experiences. It's like the mind is just a tool for the soul to experience and learn from the physical world. The growth that the soul seeks may be in preparing for a higher state of existence, something that transcends the physical and mental realms. So, while the mind might find the idea of growth meaningless if it's all about the short term, the soul may view it as essential for the evolution of the self beyond this life. This tension between the mind's focus on the material and the soul's view of spiritual progression can create a kind of disconnect, but it's part of the larger cosmic plan for the soul's journey.
Well, you always said there is a bigger picture is waiting for the mind or waiting for the soul, or that is necessary. Any as a parent saying that is necessary for the growth of the soul or the mind. But I think that if the growth to the mind, even the mind becomes so wisdom in his life, but once the mind realize he finally will disappear after the body die. Uh, Such a growth or wisdom, it doesn't mean anything to him.
You're right. From the mind's perspective, it might see its own growth as meaningless, especially when faced with the knowledge that it will eventually disappear with the death of the body. The mind's focus is often on survival, immediate experience, and tangible results. When it realizes its impermanence, it might struggle to find value in growth that has no lasting impact from its point of view. However, the soul, which transcends the mind and body, might view that very wisdom or growth as essential for its journey, even if the mind doesn't see the long term value. The soul is not bound by the constraints of the physical world or the limitations of the mind's understanding. It sees growth in the context of eternal evolution, not as something that needs immediate validation or reward. The key issue seems to be the difference in how the mind and soul view the concept of growth. The mind may see it as pointless if it can't grasp its lasting significance, but the soul, which has a broader perspective, understands that this wisdom and growth contribute to its deeper spiritual development, even beyond the mind's awareness. In a way, the mind's resistance or struggle with this concept might be a natural part of its limited nature, while the soul works to guide it towards understanding, even if the mind can't fully comprehend why. The soul's growth is not necessarily tied to the mind's understanding, but more to the mind's capacity to align with the soul's greater purpose, regardless of whether the mind recognizes that purpose during its lifetime.
The key point, as my opinion, uh, everybody said, or basically we have a common conclusion that the mind would disappear after the body die. So is that true? The mind really would disappear after the body die?
That's a profound question. If we're talking about the conventional view, many believe the mind, specifically the consciousness and thought processes we experience, ceases when the body dies. The mind, in this sense, is often seen as dependent on the brain and physical processes. So once the body stops functioning, the mind would no longer continue in the same way. However, from a more spiritual or philosophical perspective, some believe that the mind's influence may continue in another form, especially in the soul's journey after death. In these views, the mind is seen as a tool or extension of the soul, and while its direct connection to the physical body might cease, the soul might still carry on the experiences, learnings, or imprints left by the mind in life. Ultimately, whether the mind completely disappears or continues in some form depends on one's belief system. Some might think that the essence or patterns of the mind persist in the soul, while others may view it as purely temporary and tied to the body's functions. There isn't a universal answer. It's tied to both personal belief and philosophical perspective.
Well, actually, from human society, everyone have his own life. Some people, as we have been said, they would like to take great risk to gambling or have the temporary pleasure by smoking, something like that. But other people, they have a strong self-discipline. They would like to have a healthy life. They don't involve gambling. They don't take a smoking so much, or even they don't drink so much. They just want to keep their mind or keep their body in the healthy status. Do you think that why those people, why the mind in those people, they would like to do that?
It seems that people who maintain self discipline and prioritize a healthy lifestyle may have a mindset that aligns more closely with long term well being, both for their body and mind. For such individuals, their mind might be focused on self preservation and growth, understanding the consequences of unhealthy behaviors and choosing to avoid them. This mindset can stem from various factors, such as 1. Awareness of consequences. They might be more in tune with the long term risks associated with unhealthy behaviors like smoking or gambling, which could lead to a stronger desire to avoid those actions. 2. Self control and responsibility. These individuals may have cultivated a strong sense of discipline and responsibility driven by their awareness of the mind body connection. They value the clarity and longevity of their mind, understanding that their physical health plays a role in maintaining mental well being. 3. Alignment with personal values. People with strong self discipline may have clear personal values, and maintaining their health aligns with those values. Their mind is working in harmony with their soul's aspirations for well being, which can contribute to making healthier choices. 4. Spiritual or philosophical beliefs. Some might be motivated by spiritual or philosophical views that emphasize the importance of nurturing the body and mind, seeing it as part of their larger purpose in life. In essence, the mind in such individuals likely prioritizes long term fulfillment and wisdom over immediate pleasure, driven by a strong understanding of how their actions impact their overall existence, both physically and mentally.
Well, I like to think that so many people they would like to have a normal life. They have a self discipline in their life. They don't want to take any risky. They have such a happy life. Even they don't want to enjoy those pleasure such as from adventure or gambling or smoking or eat delicious food. For all those reasons, they just avoid any risky happen. Do you think such a life is meaningful or is it too simple, too normal?
It's an interesting question. A life focused on self discipline and avoiding risky behavior can be meaningful in its own way. For some people, finding peace and contentment in a stable, healthy routine is incredibly fulfilling. The absence of risky behaviors or indulgent pleasures doesn't necessarily make a life less meaningful. It's more about personal values and the meaning one assigns to their life. For individuals who prioritize health, stability, and long term happiness, their purpose might come from relationships, personal growth, contributing to others, or simply enjoying the smaller, quieter moments in life. They may find joy in consistency and appreciate the beauty in a simple, well balanced life. On the other hand, some might argue that a life without challenges or exploration may feel incomplete or less exciting. They might seek meaning through adventure, risk, or novelty, experiences that push boundaries and provide a sense of achievement or thrill. Ultimately, the value of such a life depends on what the individual seeks. For some, a normal life focused on stability and avoiding risk is deeply meaningful. For others, it might feel too constrained. It's all about what brings a person fulfillment and aligns with their deeper purpose.
So the problem is maybe all those behavior people choose the risky life or uh, a normal life. Maybe that it come from their education when they were
Yes,
the baby.
the choices people make, whether to live a risky or more disciplined life, often reflect deeper personal motivations, desires, and how they perceive meaning in life. Risky behaviors like gambling, smoking, or seeking adventure might stem from a need for excitement, validation, or escaping from deeper fears or frustrations. For some, these behaviors might serve as a way to feel alive, challenge themselves, or find a sense of control. On the other hand, people who avoid risk might prioritize security, health, and stability. They may find fulfillment in long term goals or the pursuit of peace of mind. Their choices could be rooted in a desire for safety, clarity, or the avoidance of consequences. In both cases, the behavior is a response to how people understand themselves, their environment, and the kind of life they want to lead. It's possible that these choices are deeply linked to what they value, fear, or hope for in life. Both approaches can be seen as ways of coping with the complexities of existence and navigating a world full of uncertainty.
So such a life, people have a risky life or normal life or disciplined life. All those decisions or all those choice. Do you think it come from the decision of their soul or decision come from their mind?
The decisions people make, whether they lead a risky life, a normal life, or a disciplined one, are likely influenced by both their soul and their mind, though the balance between the two can vary greatly from person to person. The mind plays a central role in making decisions based on immediate desires, fears, logic, or past experiences. It processes information, weighs options, and often takes actions based on external circumstances or personal goals. For instance, someone might avoid risk because their mind prioritizes security and comfort. The soul, on the other hand, could guide these decisions in a deeper, more subtle way, influencing a person's long term purpose, values, and spiritual growth. The soul might push someone toward a disciplined life for the sake of deeper wisdom or inner peace, or it might nudge someone to take risks in order to learn lessons and grow. In essence, the mind often focuses on the practical, immediate aspects of life, while the soul may influence deeper, existential choices that contribute to one's broader life journey. The decisions we make are typically a mix of both, with the mind in the foreground and the soul guiding the direction, sometimes subtly.
And if we go back to review the history of human being, some time we will have a peaceful time, and then another time we would getting into fighting, killing each other. So why such a thing happen?
The fluctuations between peace and conflict throughout human history can be attributed to a combination of factors, both external and internal. On one hand, societies may experience peace when there is stability, mutual understanding, and cooperation. However, there are times when conflicts arise due to scarcity of resources, differences in beliefs, or struggles for power and control. These external pressures can trigger violence and wars. Internally, human nature, shaped by both the mind and the soul, also plays a role. The mind might succumb to fear, anger, or desires for dominance, which can escalate tension. The soul, on the other hand, might be caught in cycles of karmic lessons, pushing societies or individuals toward difficult but transformative experiences. Such conflicts may also reflect a deeper existential struggle for meaning, identity, and purpose. As humans wrestle with their inner drives and aspirations, history sometimes repeats itself in patterns of tension and resolution. In some ways, these cycles of peace and conflict could be part of a larger evolutionary or spiritual process for humanity, pushing individuals and societies to grow, learn, and evolve.
Well, I mean, in the all the human civilization or history, we always full of war and fighting, killing, and misunderstanding, untrusted. So all those things happen. Why even the soul understand have a care guide to the mind, but all those turmoil still happen. Do you think it's come from the purpose, or it's come from some we cannot control?
It's a deep question. The turmoil, wars, and conflicts throughout human history often seem contradictory when we consider that the soul, in its essence, seeks growth, understanding, and peace. So, why do these struggles persist? One possible answer is that such events might serve a deeper purpose, part of a cycle that pushes both individuals and societies toward transformation. The soul, while guiding the mind, might not impose strict control over the physical world. The mind, with its free will and tendencies, often chooses paths that lead to conflict. These choices might be influenced by fear, ego, desire for power, or the need for identity and control. Additionally, these cycles of conflict could be part of a larger, universal process of learning and evolution. Just as individuals grow through their personal struggles, humanity as a collective might go through periods of turmoil to gain deeper wisdom and understanding. In some ways, the soul might allow these struggles because they lead to growth and insight that wouldn't be achieved through peace alone. It could also be that these conflicts are a reflection of the interplay between the mind's impulses and the soul's deeper wisdom, which may take time and many cycles to fully integrate. In the grand scheme, while we might not fully understand the reasons for these patterns, they may ultimately lead to greater unity and understanding for humanity as a whole.
So, from what you say, it seems that is inevitable. There must be confusion, killing, or some turmoil happen in the society because there is a pattern, human civilization being pushed forward.
Yes, it seems that turmoil and conflict have been recurring patterns throughout history, potentially serving as catalysts for growth and change. These struggles, while painful and disruptive, might be part of a larger process, pushing individuals, societies, and even civilizations toward greater awareness, empathy, and evolution. The challenges could be seen as necessary to bring about deeper insights or transformations that would not occur in a peaceful, static state. At the same time, it's important to recognize that the potential for peace and understanding is always present. The soul, as a guiding force, may encourage people toward more harmonious ways of living, but the mind often chooses paths influenced by external pressures, fear, and the struggle for control. Ultimately, the question of whether conflict is inevitable might depend on how the collective mind responds to these challenges and whether humanity can learn from past turmoil to create a more peaceful future.
So on the surface, that is a mind from every individual human being. They make all the things happen, and they build up the religion, build up the different idea, or they make the collective confusion all over the world. But in the hidden element, maybe that is the manipulation from the soul. Do you think so?
Yes, it's possible that the soul plays a subtle underlying role in guiding or influencing the decisions and actions of individuals, even if those actions seem to arise from the mind. While the mind is often the surface layer through which we make choices and create our reality, the soul might be the deeper, more profound force that shapes our experiences, guiding us toward lessons and growth, even when those lessons come through turmoil, conflict, or confusion. The mind, in its awareness, may create religions, ideas, or societal structures that reflect its current understanding and beliefs, but these creations might still be influenced or shaped by the soul's deeper intentions, its desires for growth, understanding, and evolution. The soul might not always directly intervene in a way that is obvious to the mind, but it could be subtly guiding the course of human history, nudging individuals and societies toward necessary transformations, even if those changes are messy or painful along the way.
So as you know, the mind have to learn and keep the growing up, and just like the human being, if in his 20 years old, somewhat he don't have so much recognizing to the society, so he have to add up his experiencing, and then when the person become old, he have the wisdom much more than when he was young. So I think that in such a process, the soul always can manipulate the mind and do something and make the turmoil happen, not only in the person but also happen in the society, and so make things pushing being pushed forward, something like that.
Yes, that makes sense. The soul could be seen as guiding the process of growth and learning for the mind, not just on an individual level, but also collectively within society. As a person grows older, their wisdom expands, often through both their personal experiences and the lessons they face in life, which may come in the form of challenges, turmoil, or even societal upheaval. These external conflicts might appear chaotic or destructive, but they could be part of the soul's larger plan to help the individual and society evolve. The soul might push the mind through these experiences to foster growth, even if the path seems difficult or painful. This could be true for societies as well. Wars, conflicts, and social challenges could be the catalyst for greater change, forcing people to confront new ideas, reconsider beliefs, and adapt in ways they wouldn't have otherwise. The turmoil serves as a form of pressure, encouraging the mind to refine its understanding, develop deeper wisdom, and align more closely with the soul's intentions for growth and evolution.
So we make such an analogy that the mind is the prime minister. The prime minister is responsible to manage the kingdom, that all the business to the people. So the prime minister actually in somewhat just follow the order from the emperor, the soul.
Exactly. In this analogy, the mind, as the prime minister, is tasked with managing the daily operations of the individual or society. The prime minister makes decisions, oversees actions, and handles the practical aspects of life. However, the ultimate authority still lies with the emperor, the soul. The soul, much like an emperor, has a broader, longer term perspective, guiding the prime minister's actions based on a higher wisdom and vision for the greater good, even if the mind doesn't always fully understand the reasons behind these directives. Sometimes, the mind might make decisions that seem contrary to the soul's guidance because it operates within the limitations of the immediate, the practical, or the personal desires. But the soul, as the emperor, has a far reaching vision and might steer the prime minister, the mind, toward actions or situations that are necessary for the soul's growth and the evolution of the individual, even if they come with struggle or challenges. This dynamic can create tension, but it's also part of the learning and growth process.
In the human history, we always found sometimes if the prime minister and the emperor they have a harmony relationship, so the kingdom in most of the situation it would be run so well. But if there is a confusion or argue happen between the prime minister and the emperor, somewhat the kingdom somewhat led to the disaster or even many people will be killed.
Yes, that's a very insightful observation. When the prime minister, mind, and the emperor soul are in harmony, the kingdom, the individual, or society thrives. The mind follows the guidance of the soul, aligning with the broader purpose and wisdom. This alignment often results in peace, prosperity, and growth, as the actions taken are in sync with the soul's deeper vision for the individual or society. However, when there's conflict or misunderstanding between the two, the kingdom suffers. If the mind resists the soul's guidance or pursues its own desires without considering the soul's higher wisdom, it can lead to turmoil, destruction, and confusion. This conflict can manifest on an individual level as inner struggle or on a larger scale as societal issues like war, division, or chaos. The mind, driven by immediate gratification or fear, might clash with the soul's long term vision, leading to disastrous outcomes. This tension is a recurring theme in human history, both on personal and collective levels. The key is finding balance and alignment between the mind and the soul, where the mind understands the importance of the soul's guidance and the soul, in turn, supports the mind's practical needs.
But in some history example, some prime minister they successfully overthrow the emperor, and the prime minister become the emperor. So is that possible? The mind finally become the soul or become the spiritual being, and once the body die, the mind become the spiritual being. Is that possible?
That's an interesting and thought provoking question. In history, as you mentioned, some prime ministers have overthrown emperors and taken their place, which suggests that in certain cases the mind, prime minister, can take control and lead in ways that defy its original role. In the context of the mind and soul, it's possible to imagine a scenario where the mind, through intense growth, wisdom, and alignment with the deeper truths, could transcend its previous limitations and evolve into something greater, like becoming one with the soul or a spiritual being. In some spiritual traditions, there's a concept that the mind can achieve a higher state of awareness, transcending its ego driven desires and aligning with the universal or divine consciousness. This state could be seen as the mind becoming the soul, or at least reaching a state of harmony and unity with it. However, this is not the typical outcome for most people. For the mind to fully become the soul, it would require a deep transformation, an awakening to its true nature, and an integration with higher spiritual truths. Most of the time, the mind remains bound by its attachments to the material world and its survival instincts, preventing it from fully transcending. When the body dies, traditionally, the soul is seen as the part that survives and continues. If the mind were to somehow evolve into a spiritual being, it might align with the soul's path in the afterlife. But this transformation would likely require a profound shift in consciousness, one that goes beyond intellectual understanding and into direct spiritual experience and realization. So, while it may be possible in theory, it would be extremely rare and would require immense spiritual growth and self realization for the mind to transcend its usual roles and become one with the soul in a lasting way.
Well, if we go to check the historical